Hello, I'm Patrick Daychild, and today I want to look at customer aversion to the metaverse. So I want to take kind of the reasons why customers are scared of the metaverse or have some issues with it and look at it from their point of view and try and get in the head of customers that might be a bit anxious of taking their steps into metaverse and understanding what it is. So just a quick background on me so you know who I am. I've been working in the games industry for 15 years, roughly. I started when I was about 12, 13, I think. I had to left school early, started as a journalist, then moved into game testing, and now into marketing, did some more game journalism, that kind of stuff. I did a degree in marketing. My dissertation was on perceived scarcity on video gamers' purchase behavior, and now I'm studying a master's in marketing, and my kind of big research proposal is all on branding in the metaverse. So just a very quick rundown of what this is going to kind of entail. Importantly, it's not a lecture. I think a very basic important thing to note is that marketing is a social science and it changes very rapidly, and the metaverse research is changing constantly. Stuff that I read last year isn't relevant this year. Stuff changes very, very, very rapidly. So when you watch this, just be aware I'm trying to create a discussion, not this is how it is. I want a discussion. And kind of key points of the presentation, run through the metaverse, look at tangibility, and then some risk and evaluation from a customer's perspective, and then how to build kind of customer confidence. So just a quick introduction to the metaverse and some of the key factors that I've identified that customers often see that could potentially cause some issues. Obviously, I'm at university. I talk to marketing students, and marketing as a kind of discipline is very forward-facing and it's changing constantly. So we often have discussions around metaverse, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and all this kind of exciting stuff in AI, obviously. And one of the things that comes up from people who don't specialize in technology, specialize in other areas, is what actually is the metaverse? And it depends who you ask. So my new go-to is it's an infinite number of worlds with an infinite number of definitions. So if you speak to an academic, a journalist, a gamer, or a corporate PR identity, then you will get a different answer as to what the metaverse is. There's even arguments around whether it exists or not yet. Some people have said, oh, it's existed for years since Second Life. Or they're saying, no, it's brand new. It's all virtual reality. It's that kind of stuff. And there's a total mixed message. Through that mixed message, what we're getting is all different kind of reasons for it to exist. So there was an advert in the UK on the radio saying metaverse will allow us to train people in medicine digitally. Now that didn't take too well. People say, well, I don't want my doctors to learn digitally. I want them to learn face to face. And that's kind of caused a little bit of concern. However, when you read into it from an academic point of view, there's something called the medical Internet of Things, and they talk about the metaverse and that, and how it can be very beneficial for some areas of medicine. And that's really important, but because it was a small 15-20 second advert, they failed to nail the point of actually what they might use it for in medicine. So people come away saying, yeah, I'm not sure I like the idea of my doctor being taught VR scalpelling. And finally, I think that kind of brand identities having similar names would probably cause an issue. It makes people wonder who owns it, and it adds again to the question: what's the point of it? What's it for? What should it do? What can it do? So evidence of this, I wanted to make a bit of an argument. I found through ethnography, content analysis, general anecdotal speaking to friends and colleagues, work, that kind of stuff, and for university. But I wanted to kind of build a bit more of an argument. So what I did was I took a sample of 67 people, which again, I stress isn't a lecture, and I haven't spent months preparing for this presentation, so I worked with what I had. That group would largely have consisted of my friend circle, so probably gamers or working gaming, people on my uni course doing marketing, and there will be others that filled it in. 67 of them, 3 worked in tech. I said, okay, give me one word that you associate with the metaverse. And I took their answers and split them into three: positive, negative, confused. And what I saw was a definite tilt towards negative, followed very closely by confusion and a crossover between the two. So I had words like clueless, virtual reality, which again, can apply to the metaverse, but isn't solely it. And we saw words like Facebook. So people know that there's a link there, but they don't quite understand what it is. And then obviously we had some negativity. So we had words like grifters, pretentious, some very colourful language, in fact. But I was curious because these, if anything, are the kind of people that the metaverse platforms probably want to kind of reach, tech fans and gamers. So what I thought would be interesting is to try and understand where that hatred comes from, where the negativity comes from. And we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want us to try and get in the mindset of a generic customer who might interact with a platform. So something that I've found through my research for my master's project is that tangibility is actually changing. I've got here a little quote from a physicist. Innovation is a very difficult thing in the real world. Now, when he said this, he wasn't talking about changing the world. He was talking about, he worked in a hotel one summer and he came up with this great system that made everything more efficient. And the staff hated it and the manager hated it and he had to pull it away. And I find that this applies to a lot of things. When you come up with a new great idea, it can be wonderful, but people will push against it. So Coca-Cola's kind of staple example in marketing, they came up through research with this beautiful new recipe that everyone should love, released it, said you're going to love it. Everyone said we hate it, and they had to change the recipe back. So what do I mean by tangibility is changing? If we think of either a music CD or a video game disc, the kind of product itself, the item, is physically tangible, but what we do with it is intangible. You put it in a CD player or you put it in a console, PC, whatever, and then you interact with it through a controller or by dancing. It suddenly becomes physically intangible. Now consider this. When was the last time you purchased a CD that played music? Aside from a collector's one that sits on a shelf for 10 years. Ask yourself, when did you last buy a physical video game? Now, the video game one, I'm a collector, I like to have the physical items. However, people really pushed against this idea. They said, we don't like the idea that we can download our games. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to agree to it. It's not something that I agree with. And now, the first time, I believe last year, digital games took over physical games. There's lots of reasons why that could be. It could be a result of people having to download games during the pandemic and seeing that, oh, okay, maybe this works. Actually, it is quite convenient, but there could be other factors. And LaRoche et al. Proposed this idea of mental intangibility. This new dimension of intangibility was kind of the idea that you can touch something, it's physically, it's there, but you can't comprehend it. I think the example he uses is like a car engine. And then the other dimensions are generality and specific. So that is basically, it's as it sounds. So let's say you buy a computer, general is, I bought a computer. Specific would be you list the disk drive, the processor, the graphics card, all that kind of stuff. You understand it to a deeper level. And it's important we understand these definitions because it feeds into the wider theory that I'm about to talk about, the kind of deeper aspects of a customer's brain, how it works and how they perceive risk and that kind of thing. And then this opens a big question for me. Where do things like crypto and NFTs land? Because to the majority of people, they're physically intangible. It's a digital item. It's mentally intangible. They don't understand how it works. You say to someone, how does crypto work? And they talk about a decentralized banking system. Most people don't get that. I don't get it. And then, it falls into generality as well. People don't understand the specifics of how a blockchain works. So ED and PR in digital worlds. ED is valuation difficulty. PR is perceived risk, not public relations in this context. So what LaRoche found is intangibility of any kind leads to increased perceived risk and evaluation difficulty. So when you add all three together, it becomes more difficult. So you've got mental intangibility, physical intangibility, and lack of specifics, so generality. These all start to contribute to a higher and higher level of evaluation difficulty and perceived risk. And I think strong evidence for this comes from a personal curveball that I came up with, which is kids. Kids who are born in this kind of digital revolution do not view evaluation difficulty and perceived risk in the same way. They don't view digital items in that way. They think, they see and they go, okay, that's what I'm getting. They don't consider stuff like ownership. They don't read headlines. They don't worry about DRM. They just go, that's what I'm getting. I'll buy it. Compared to a parent or grown up, if you prefer, however, which way you slice it, they might consider things like, well, do I own this? What happens if the servers go down? What if there's a policy change? We see in headlines that people lose ownership of games that they've downloaded to consoles or PC because the company goes bust, or there's a change in licensing agreement. But these don't occur to children usually. Of course, it's person by person. Some kids are incredibly savvy, but it's something to be aware of, and I think it makes a compelling argument and deserves a level of research that hasn't been taken yet. So just to quickly summarise that little area, because it's kind of confusing. Negative press, mental intangibility, physical intangibility, mixed messages, brand trust, perceived risk, evaluation difficulty are all contributing factors to metaverse aversion, the reason why people are concerned about it. This is at least one aspect that people are so concerned about it and confused by it. So how do we build customer confidence? A lot of customers are actually already using the metaverse, depending on who you ask, and therein lies part of the problem. There's no way that every company will agree on what a metaverse is. Each company has its own agenda, each company wants to sell different products, each company wants to use it for something else. But it would be good to have some level of clarity that the customer can understand in a very simple way as to what it is they're interacting with and what they could be interacting with. I generally, when I present to my class, I say metaverses, make it plural, because I think to most people, well, maybe not most, but to the general public, when you say metaverse, they think of things like Ready Player One. They imagine this interconnected world where everyone interacts with each other, and some companies want to push that, but some can't because it's not what they offer. Now, many metaverse companies or games that operate in the metaverse, they tie in cryptocurrency and NFTs. They want to be the leading innovative kind of company that we like to be. But I think this causes a problem, because instead of having physical intangibility and mental intangibility just for the metaverse and generality, of course, you've got it for crypto and NFTs. So instead of being 3 factors into risk aversion, it's 9, because it's piled on top and top and top. So separate them, and I think that can lower the barrier to entry, and it will help people understand the risk of purchasing things through your metaverse if you give them the options to purchase with real money rather than pushing crypto. You open your audience base. Now, who owns what is a very interesting kind of development that we see. So I think it's important that you're very clear as a company. If someone purchases a product from you, will they keep it if you go bust? And that will just help ease some of that evaluation difficulty or risk that people will see when they want to purchase stuff from you. They want to know what will happen if they spend real money. Where will it go in 10 years? A returns policy, or refunds if you prefer, but this has become more and more apparent since loot boxes are kind of pushing and gaining more and more momentum. People are concerned. They're also concerned by post-launch updates. A lot of people are saying, I want my money back because this game you've launched isn't up to scratch and you're just trying to fix it after it's launched. So being clear, particularly with digital items, what your return policy is will again help ease that perceived risk. And the lower the barrier to entry, the lower the perceived risk. So if you have a free game, people will try it probably. What they may be concerned by, and this all feeds into bigger, wider issues and tactics, is if you say it's a free game but you have crypto and NFTs, because then again that builds confusion, which builds the perceived risk and valuation difficulty. So if you take one thing away from this presentation, it's that clarity is key. We have so many mixed messages and confusion among customers on what a metaverse even is, that they they don't know what they're interacting with, they don't know what it's for, they don't know the point of it. So clarity is key. And I'm sure you would have heard that from your communications people. Have one single clear message. So if you've got to here, sat through it all, well done. Thank you, most of all. If you want to contact me, disagree with anything, argue with me, agree with me, that'd be nice. You can find me on LinkedIn, email me or comment. I've also included some of the sources. Now, I've only included La Roche because they're the two kind of sources that we talked about mostly. There are, of course, other references I use throughout this, but they're stuff that I've picked up through 5 years of study through university, and over time they get piled and piled into different areas and I lose track of them. Just on the side are some of the projects I've worked on or been in. So yeah, thank you very much.